Come here, hey.
For the longest time, we've thought our Maltipoo's behavior towards other dogs was aggressive. But is it really? We're soon to find out. Hi, I'm Julia, and this is Rosco the Maltipoo. We recently met with a real dog trainer to discuss Rosco's behavior and get some advice for socializing him with other dogs. So if you currently own a reactive dog that you're trying to socialize, hopefully this advice can apply to you too. First, if you're new to my channel, here's some background about Rosco. The gist of the story is we got Rosco right when COVID hit and missed the prime window for socializing him with other dogs. Once we got out of lockdown, we noticed a very big difference in his behavior, and he started to growl and bark at dogs whenever he'd see them on walks or out in public settings. Quickly, we became discouraged and were embarrassed to take Rosco anywhere. It seemed we were doing everything we could to correct his behavior, but it just didn't seem to be going anywhere. One of our biggest questions as we were trying to socialize Rosco was his behavior fearful, excited, or aggressive? Was it safe for him to meet other dogs, or would he try to bite them? How could we stop the lunging and barking, and why was he doing it in the first place? Nearly every time we'd bring him out somewhere, he'd have a bad experience, so how could we avoid that? Back in the fall, my dad found out about this training class near our house that would take place with other dogs, so we thought maybe this could be a good experience for Rosco. Except, if Rosco was aggressive, was it okay for him to be in a class like this? So before signing up, we met with one of the trainers there and had her evaluate him to see whether he'd be a good fit for the class. So after we introduced ourselves and Rosco met the dog trainer, she wanted to observe Rosco's behavior and see how he reacted when another dog was in his presence. And so she took out her dog. Her instructions were start far away from the dog and gradually move closer until Rosco was at his threshold.
Notice the trigger, the thing that makes them bark or whatever, at a far enough distance where they go, oh yeah, there's the guy with the lawnmower, and they can keep it under threshold, keep it together, right? And then you go, great, you can look at that and keep it together. Yes, here's some cookies. Can you do it here? Great, yes, some cookies. Can you do it here? Yes, some cookies. And then we're going to take a break. We're going to take that pressure off, right? I want to keep you what we call under threshold. I don't want you to explode.
The dog trainer gave us some really helpful advice that if we ever encountered a situation where Rosco was above that threshold and we didn't have enough distance to work with, we could just pick him up and move away from that situation. I'd been avoiding doing this because I thought that reinforced fear, but the dog trainer explained that recent studies have shown otherwise.
You cannot reinforce fear. You know, you just pick up and say, we're going this way, bro. We're good.
So now that we'd met, she told my dad to do some loose leash walking with Rosco far away from the dog in the parking lot. The moment Rosco made eye contact with the dog, we were to say yes and then give him a snack.
So as soon as he looked at the dog, use your yes, and hopefully he'll look at you and get a cookie.
Okay, gotcha. So right when he looks at it.
Exactly.
All right. Rosco. Yes.
Nice. Good job. But you also see my dog's body language. His tail is down.
Yeah.
He's not leaping. He's not barking. So he's pretty calm. So you're going to get that kind of reaction from that kind of dog.
Right.
If we do this enough, his instinct will become to look at us after he sees a dog. So as my dad was doing this loose leash walking and praising Rosco whenever he saw the dog to make it a positive experience, a stranger approached us who was walking a dog. The handler wasn't really managing her dog, and Rosco started to lunge and growl. And so like the dog trainer said, my dad picked Rosco up and moved away.
We'll call it uncontrolled dog. Because the handler was letting the dog just take her wherever the dog wanted to go. So you having the skills to recognize that way in advance and say, this is not going to end well, and I can see it 15 minutes before it happens, we're just going to go.
Okay.
That is excellent skills on your part, because that's the stuff you've got to notice.
Right.
So what was that behavior, and why was it different from his behavior with the black lab? The dog trainer explained to us that Rosco's growling and lunging was his way of saying, you're getting too close, back off.
Because that dog was pulling toward,
he was wanting to get towards
he
him.
wanted to get him, and he was like, I don't want you in my face, back up. And normal socialized dogs, oh, I'm sorry, my bad, I didn't mean to intrude, I'm rude. There are a lot of rude dogs out there, and they don't know they're rude.
And she said that it was more rude than aggressive. Earlier with the lab, whose body language was more relaxed and calm, Rosco's behavior was excited.
That's more excited body language. He's not barking, he's not pulling.
Okay, so that's excited. She also shared with us an additional tip if Rosco reached above his threshold, which was if a dog was coming on, we could step on his leash to have him settle down, and that's a technique we've been using now. So my dad continued to have Rosco heel around the lab, and whenever he'd start to trash talk, he would just move farther away and get his attention back on him. We learned from this that it's super important to observe other dogs' body language just as much as Rosco's, because how the other dog reacting will signal to us whether we need to move away with Rosco. All throughout the summer, we socialized Rosco with our neighbor's black lab. It was going great until we got distracted and this happened.
Rosco, gentle.
We were pretty convinced that this was Rosco showing aggression, but we wanted to hear what the dog trainer had to say.
You watch the black lab.
Yeah.
He puts his tail down and he walks away. He would like you to go away, to leave me alone.
Okay.
And then when he doesn't leave the lab alone, the lab looks back and probably picks up his lip that you can't say to say, leave me alone. And then he, why'd you do that to me? I like you. So it was the black lab saying, you know, I would like you to go away.
And he's not
he
responding.
didn't get the note. And then when the black lab turned and said, I mean it really, he took offense. Dude, the second sign, man.
Earlier on in the playdate, the black lab had shown signs to Rosco that he was getting too much in her face. And when Rosco didn't pick up on those signs, the black lab reacted that way. And then that startled Rosco and caused him to act the way he did. So neither of the behaviors were aggressive.
If it was aggressive, there would be teeth marks.
Yeah.
So it's what we call an air snap.
Yep.
So what the usual line of events, series of events is for the lab, tail down, head turned away, that's the leave me alone. Then it's usually, I'm gonna stare at you. You may not see it because it happens fast, depends on the dog. You'll see a lip go up, and then you're gonna get the yell. Knock it off!
I think Rosco just hasn't been socialized enough to pick up on those cues from other dogs, and that's a big reason why he keeps landing himself in trouble. He's rude, he's in the face, and frankly, he thinks he's bigger than he is. One thing we've been really struggling with socialization is whether or not we should try to socialize Rosco with other neighbors' dogs. Is there any danger of Rosco biting another dog? We don't want that to happen.
Dogs have teeth.
Right.
They all can bite.
So
They can all bite. So that's where it becomes on you with body language.
okay.
So neutral territory,
Yeah.
harness, long line, loose.
Okay.
At a distance.
Yeah.
Right? Usually we start walking and watching body language.
Yeah.
If it looks loose and friendly, great. If it doesn't, we call it a good training exercise,
And that's
that's it.
Okay.
I will probably say it's going to take some time for him to loosen up a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And realize that not all dogs are going to eat him.
Basically, walking side by side is just fine. The dogs don't have to meet. That way, we just avoid any of the possibility of behaviors escalating. Next, we practice some parallel walking. My dad handled Rosco while the dog trainer handled her lab. Parallel walking is just as it sounds. The two handlers will walk side by side so that the dogs can get used to walking alongside one another. If you're wondering how to teach your dog to walk on a loose leash, I'll have a video on how we taught this to Rosco coming soon, but we started by luring Rosco with a treat so that he walked beside us rather than pulling in front. Just like before, if Rosco started barking or lunging towards the lab, my dad would walk further away. Then we let Rosco sniff the lab, whose head was out the window of the dog trainer's car.
Rosco, look. Yes.
And then afterwards, we introduced Rosco to the dog trainer's other younger lab who was in his crate. Rosco got excited and started wagging his tail, and it was neat to see him so relaxed. What is Rosco's general behavior towards other dogs? How should we label it? According to the dog trainer, he's not aggressive, but reactive. He reacts in barking and lunging because 1, dogs are still unknown and new to him, and 2, he hasn't been taught otherwise. Well, even if Rosco's not aggressive, is he reacting in fear?
Yeah, fear I do not see. I see independence. I see I'm standing up. I'm seeing get out my face.
Okay.
Honestly, now that I look back on it all, I think we really overcomplicated it. Rosco's behavior isn't some sort of complex enigma like we thought it was. He just needs to be around dogs more so he can get used to them. The journey doesn't end here. Spoiler alert, we did end up enrolling Rosco in the training class, and his progress is amazing. I cannot begin to tell you how reassured my dad and I were after meeting with this dog trainer. We were under the impression that we had a dog with incurable aggression that would never be able to get used to other dogs, that would always be an embarrassment, and no matter how hard we tried, we could never make any difference. Driving home, we felt like we had an entirely different dog. So once I make that video about Rosco's experience in training class, I'll put it up here for you to watch next. But until then, go watch this video where I analyze one of Rosco's meet and greets with another dog that went wrong, and also share some key socialization mistakes that we made along the way. Thank you so much for watching, and Rosco and I will see you in the next video. Bye!